Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Puppet Time Online. I'm your host, Eric Wright. Thank you for joining me. This is Puppet Time Online. This is your chance to sit down with some of puppetry's finest and me and hear about what they know about. As always, I've got Katrina over here manning your questions and comments. So we're on YouTube Live, so comments are over here or down here, and we're also on Facebook Live and Twitch right now. So hello, world. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really glad that you're here watching. Today, we've got a great guest. I'm really excited to have this person on our show today. We were trying to get her on earlier, and then, she's so busy, so we had to shift things around. So I'm really excited to get to talk to her today. I have been lucky enough to work with our guest today on a couple of different projects at Sesame Street, on Helpsters. She has done incredible work on The Dark Crystal, on Walking with Dinosaurs Live, and most recently on the Moschino fashion show that was done entirely with puppets. So I want to talk with her about being a wrangler. She is also a costumer, a builder, and has won an Emmy Award for her work on Sesame Street as part of that costume team. So I'm really excited to bring on to the show today, Miss Andrea Detwiler. Hello, Andrea.
Hi! Hi, Eric. Hi, Katrina. Hi, everybody out there. Yay!
Well, I'm so excited to have you on the show today. I wonder if we can just start the way we always start here, which is, why don't you tell me a little bit about how you got into puppetry?
Okay. I'll try and keep it short. It wasn't something that I knew you could have a job doing. It wasn't something that I grew up thinking, this is what I want to do. That's it. I watched Sesame Street, The Muppets. It kind of was an unfolding of events. And after I graduated from high school, went to college, went to an art school, studied costume design. To supplement that degree in costume design, I worked summers at a theme park and learned kind of the backstage world of costuming and wardrobe. And so I was a dresser, I was a costumer, I was a wardrobe supervisor. The last year I was at this theme park in Virginia, the gentleman who was overseeing the refurbishment of all of our walkarounds, which was like Scooby-Doo and Fred Flintstone, it was the Hanna-Barbera characters. He was leaving his position. And I talked to my immediate supervisor and I was like, I'd be really interested in that job. And so they said, oh, that's cool. So they sent me to our show services headquarters in Charlotte, North Carolina. I got trained on how to patch fiberglass and dye foam and Scott foam and barge and all the stuff we know and love.
Yeah.
And then I went back, and then there was a lot of just back and forth about my pay rate, my scale, and at the same time, my coworker was like, you should check out this company in Minnesota. And so I submitted my resume to V at the time. I think it's changed names since, but I worked for Sesame Live for 3 years in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And then from that decision just opened the doors. Like, then I met a lot of the people from Henson, since Sesame Street still had a contract with Henson. And so, so I met Ed Christie, Connie Peterson, like a lot of really great people. And then I came to New York and said, all right, I'm going to try it. And then again, one little job after another. And then finally was at Henson in 1999. I started in the New York workshop.
Yeah.
And then still there, on and off, just out here in California now.
Yeah, cool. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love it when people have a kind of like gradual like suddenly discovering that you're in puppetry now.
Yeah, that absolutely, that was me, and I love it. Like I can't imagine doing anything else. It's just,
well, and that leads me to the second question that I like to start with, which is, now that you're in puppetry, what keeps you in puppetry?
well, I realized this again on the last job I had, which is just that it is as much of how historic and part of culture puppetry is, it's ever changing. And it always has a different message. It always has a different style of art. Any challenge I'm thrown on set is a new problem to solve. And I never get bored. I never get bored. I think that's it.
That's cool.
Yep.
Now, your job, the job that I've, the way that I've interacted with you the most is with you as a puppet wrangler. And I feel like that is kind of the big mystery job of the puppetry world. It's such, being on jobs that have puppet wranglers, things go so much better. Things like, I've had experience with both kinds of productions, and when there's a puppet wrangler around, like, things are just so much easier and so much smoother. But it's not really a job that has a ton of visibility. And, when people are thinking about going into puppetry, puppet wrangler doesn't often come up. Can you tell me a little bit about what a puppet wrangler is, or what you do when you're there in that capacity?
I kind of liken it to a combination of many departments that people are familiar with. Like, you're not only a costumer, but you're a prop department. You're you're kind of you basically just have these inanimate objects that a puppeteer creatively brings to life with their voice and their characterization. But the thing they can't do is put a prop in their hand or put a hat on. And so we are sort of this liaison between the script and the performance to make those things allow for the character to be even more believable. And so, I mean, it can be extremely challenging some days, and then it can be like, oh yeah, I'll just pull this one out of my back pocket, and they'll be able to hula hoop. Like, So I think that's the best way to describe it. Is just that you're coming up with ways to just help that performer create that character and make it, because it's so magical when you see a puppet and a character perform, and then they do something that's like, oh wow, and you don't even think, oh, that puppet just opened a refrigerator, took out a piece of cheese, ate the piece of cheese, and then picked up an envelope and read a letter. and somebody had to make that happen. Right.
And of course, contrary to popular belief, Elmo can't actually grasp his hand.
But that's the great part is when you watch that, I'm specifically describing a scene from the Muppet TV show that I worked on like 5 years ago. You watch it and you don't even think that there's like a magnet in the cheese and a big rod coming up from the paper. And the puppet only has the tiniest of hands. Yeah, that's kind of what a puppet wrangler does. They're very behind the scenes, but they contribute so much.
When do you typically get brought into a production as a puppet wrangler?
Some productions on the day, like there's usually a supervisor and then a team on a bigger production, and so then it's on day one, and you've got maybe a week of prep, and the puppets have come from somewhere else. Sometimes you're involved from the beginning of the puppet build, if you know the puppets and you've worked on them, and then they're like, oh, let's send you. Or like on Helpsters, I was brought in early enough to be involved in production meetings, and so that was more of a supervisory position anyway. So
that's cool. And then you want to jump in there, Katie?
Oh yeah, we have a question.
Carol. Hi, Carol. Can you talk about the role of collaboration in your career, and what recommendations you have for puppeteers who need to hone the collaboration skills when working with others? I think that's a great question. Thank you, Carol. You talked a lot about how you're working with the puppeteers and you're also a liaison. Tell me about the role of collaboration in your job.
It is so steeped in my job and so important. Because there are some days where, you know, you're asked to do what feels like the impossible. And it's so rare that I say no. And so I do everything I can to, you know, make it happen, make it magical.
Yeah.
Now there are times where, you know, collaboration is extremely important in dealing with the time frame of things, and like you're on a production, and yes, you want to collaborate and you want to make this happen, and you want to make it for the performer and for the director and whoever's asking, but at the same time you're also dealing with, okay, well, how much time is this going to take? So it's collaboration, and it's just consideration. It's a really it's an interesting juggling of compromise. Really, it's almost more. Sometimes it just is compromise. You come as a group together to figure out the best way to move the production forward and get what you want.
How much do you feel like you need to know about what the other people on the team need to do? I mean, what I mean is, how much do you feel like knowing what a puppeteer is dealing with helps you as a wrangler? Or how much do you need to know about what the director is dealing with in order to be an effective wrangler?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you can be asked to, hey, can you put this book in this puppet's hand? And I could have a way that I would think the puppet would read a book, like, oh, it's an open book and it's, you know, got pages to flip, but everyone else could be thinking of an entirely different manner that this book is presented. So I like to watch the read through that's happening at the time it's happening, or in a production meeting, just highlight what in the script is, you know, standing out to me as a possible puppet wrangling moment. And then I still check back. I still check in with the usually the AD, who's kind of working closest with the director, and then the puppeteer, and just make sure that everybody's sort of on the same page with it. So.
And I imagine as you work with the same puppeteers over and over, you get some kind of idea of like whether people like things done in a particular way, whether people like puppets rotted in this way. Or
yes, there are certain puppeteers in the business where I know exactly what tape they want to use, what armature size they want to use, what arm they're putting things in, like, and I know who's left-handed and I know who's right-handed, and you just start to, as you work with, you know, it's a small community of television puppeteers, like this, that Sesame Street Henson style. Yeah.
What do you think, just going back to Carol's question a little bit, in terms of collaboration, like at this point, you know, you've had a ton of experience as a wrangler and in a lot of different positions in this collaboration. What do you feel like how do you get good at that? How do you get good at collaborating? Or like, how do you practice that?
Well, I think you have to like to collaborate. I think you have to be a people person. I think you have to let down any guards that you might have up for any reason. I think you have to be open. I think you just have to, I think if you come to the table willing to listen and willing to share, I think you have more success than coming to the table with an absolute, and like, well, this is, I mean, everybody comes to the table different. So that's the thing. You just have to, I feel like you definitely have to, like, you know, kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, definitely.
And you know, there are a lot of days where things don't work, and they're frustrating, and they're like, you kind of reflect, and you go, oh, why did I do it that way? I could have done it this way, but you ran out of time to do it this way, and so you just.
Are there things that you sometimes see, like? Your job is to look at the script and say, okay, I'm going to have to put this thing into this puppet's hand, or I'm going to have to dress this puppet in this costume, or in order for this effect to happen, this puppet needs X, Y, and Z. Are there things that you see in scripts that you just like right off the bat know are going to be problematic, or you're like, why would they write that into this script? Like, do they know this is a puppet show? Like,
yes. every single time a script says, and then they eat it. I go, no.
Well, what's wrong with that? Cookie Monster does it all the time.
Yes, but Cookie Monster does it with there's
There's
Gonger.
Gonger. That's great.
He's cooking up food for puppets
Speaking
to
of,
eat,
yeah.
I'm sure. Well, eating is challenging only because puppets don't have, other than Cookie Monster, puppets just don't have anywhere for food to go. It just sprays out of their mouth, as you know.
Right.
So yes, puppets eating anything is difficult.
Yeah.
I just thought
Oh,
I'd give a
Warwick!
shout out because we're looking at him.
Yeah. This is great because I wanted to talk. Thanks for throwing this up. So
The sunlight just got real weird in my. Let me turn the light on. Hold on.
Okay, great. Yeah, hold on. So while she's doing that,
There.
we can just
Okay.
mention. Yeah. So in addition to being a wrangler, you are also a builder, and
Yes.
Gonger is a character that you made.
Yeah.
That is now all over the place. He's
Yeah.
from the Furchester Hotel, and that character gets a ton of visibility.
I know, and Warwick is lovely, and I couldn't be happier that he is making this little pink monster that I made many years ago come to life and be
How
so
did that
loved.
happen? What? Tell me about his genesis. Where did he? How
Well,
did he come about?
The base of the puppet is a puppet that the workshop is constantly creating background monsters, and just it was a number of years ago. It was just assigned like 2 monsters to make so that we had more in our catalog.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just made the pink body, like it's a little body, little kind of looks like a little pink head, and arms and legs. And then it had evolved into a number of things like the Sesame Street puppets do. Like they get different eyes. I mean, I think someone in the workshop made him a squirrel at one point. So there were many different evolutions. And then as the background characters were being built and featured. When I say featured, I mean we've got drawers of eyes and mustaches.
Right. Literally,
and things.
they have features attached to them.
Yes. So then, as these characters were being featured, they were just blank, puppets. It was just again another evolution of like, oh, well, let's throw some of this fur on him, and the chef part of his character came a little later. So that costume was after the show had already begun, and now him and Cookie Monster and their food truck are just taking on.
Yeah, gangbusters.
Yeah, they're fantastic. So I was happy to see that little guy get out there.
Yeah, that's really cool. Now you've also worked with a ton of different kinds of puppets as a wrangler. I mean, you mentioned that you kind of got into it through the Sesame Street Live world, which we'd call like a mascot character type puppet. But you've also worked on Walking with Dinosaurs Live, and as well as all of the Sesame Street and Helpster style puppets, which is just like a wide range of puppets. How does your job change with those different styles of puppetry?
You just learn a new skill set every time. Like Walking with Dinosaurs was so far out of the realm of anything I had ever really done. I mean, in this photo, you can see how gigantic they are. Yeah,
they're all,
and
for those that haven't seen, it's a life-size dinosaur show. So these are big creatures.
And those are tall ladders. And so my primary job, I was not a builder on this show. Oh yeah, there I am.
Yeah, really getting in there.
I was not a builder. This was built in Australia by a fantastic company, Creature Technologies, based in Melbourne. Yeah. And then as it went out on the road, they hired teams based on where they were traveling. And so this had come to the United States. It had been out for about a year before I joined because they were launching a second tour in Europe. So a lot of the people jumped to that tour, and then they brought in a new crew for the rest of the US one. And they are big puppets. I learned how to drive a scissor lift. Cool. I mean, so it was great. I absolutely, and funny story is I had just become unemployed. It was 2009, so there was a whole economic downturn, as we all remember.
Mm-hmm.
And this job was presented to me, and I had just turned 40, so you can all do the math. But I had just turned 40, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm this single lady in New York who's just leaving everything behind to go join basically a dinosaur circus. And man, what a great decision that was. I saw the world, I met my husband, like it was like meant to be. Yeah. That's a carcass that the Raptors, we had to patch that carcass quite often.
Oh yeah.
Yes, a lot of latex patching, a lot of red paint.
Were there were there skills transferred from Sesame Street Live that you could use on Walking with Dinosaurs? Like,
well, I never toured with Sesame Street Live. So
right.
What I did with Sesame Street Live was build walkarounds like I did in Henson when I first started. So I built bears for like a lot of the Disney parks, Bear in the Big Blue House.
Yeah.
I went with Noel McNeil to a lot of events over the years. We did season 4 together. There we are in England. Yeah, that was. Yep.
Amazing.
So yes, I still can't say there was much that was really like the work I'd done before. But what was great is to, when you're remounting these dinosaurs in every new city, and you're putting together the skins, and you're kind of rebuilding them, because they had to all be dismantled, put into trucks, travel to the next city, rebuilt. But yeah, what's interesting is the materials don't change. Like the materials across the board, from the tiniest little pink puppet to those dinosaurs, it's all the same. It's got foam, it's Velcro, yeah.
That's cool.
So I love that. I love that you could open up a giant dinosaur and you're like, oh, all the things I'm familiar with. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
That's really neat. So also, just talking about different styles of puppetry, I want to talk a little bit about the Moschino fashion show that you worked on, because this just came out, and we can put a link to it in the description for this video. And if you haven't seen it, those who are watching, you should definitely see it. It's a great use of a different style of puppetry in a new, or in a different context that you're not really used to seeing. Can you talk a little bit about what your role was like on that shoot, on that production?
So I came on board rather late in the entirety of the project. It was built at the Creature Shop. The heads were sculpted, the bodies were sculpted. They were then scanned and 3D printed. So they were all assembled in the workshop. And so thankfully it was my first job back since like beginning of the year. Honestly, it was, I've been back home just waiting to get back to work. So I was brought out to help while it was being filmed on set. So there was a team of very accomplished marionettists, and then a team of just a couple of us that remained backstage, and just in collaboration with the art department at Moschino. So the costumes came from the couture house that builds their clothing in Italy. So they were sent, made of the same materials that the actual garments are made of. Yeah. And then it was their art direction team that came in, and we, in tandem, strung the marionettes through these beautiful garments. So the Moschino team would dress them as they needed to be dressed, and then we would follow behind and then just string everything to the mechanisms.
Oh my gosh, was that nerve-wracking? Just like, I mean, puppet costumes had to be so expensive. Like,
yeah,
you're like running lines through them, just like jamming needles through.
Yes. What? Yeah, exactly.
Was there any kind of conversation between the two of you? Like, I want to put strings here, or where they were like, here's this beautiful thing, please don't mess it up?
No, they were just a dream to work with. The team from Moschino, every single person there was just so easy to work with. Sorry, the lights and sun's going down outside and I'm looking darker and darker.
It's all right.
I don't know what to do now. I could turn this way. That's
there you go.
Better. There we go. Now you just get me in a blank wall.
Yeah, beautiful.
But they were such a dream to work with that, you know, they would dress these, and they were so careful with the puppets as well when they needed to dress them. And so they were very helpful. Like, we understood where the strings needed to be for the performance end of things. And then also we had Tim Lagasse, if anyone knows him, as sort of he basically strung the marionettes together, and he was just incredible as far as his knowledge and his execution of how to get these puppets to look as beautiful as they did. He was invaluable to this project.
Yeah. Here's a couple.
So so not only taking cues from him as to where logically these strings need to come through, but also then talking with the Moschino team to make sure that we weren't altering the look of their costumes. Because, you know, what's great for where a puppet is stringed might not necessarily be great for how the garments fall on the puppet. So there was a little bit of tweaking. Like you definitely were like, oh, we have to go up through the pants and this little tutu and this little, So, yep.
That's really cool.
But yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna repeat myself.
Well, I think so. So then, when you get into shooting, were you like adjusting things as you go? Were you sort of changing things up? What was that like?
Well, they were on a very tall platform, so the way we had it, what was really clever about the way these puppets were built is they had made the heads of all of the models. So you know how in a typical fashion show, you have like a team of models and they wear a number of different outfits throughout the show. So they'll run backstage, they'll change, they'll put something else on. So to continue with that illusion, we had, I think it was 16 heads of the models, and then we had 6 bodies. So they were all based on skin tone, and then we could flip-flop heads with costumes, with bodies, and then we just kind of had it in a system of like, all of this body goes on this one, bring the heads that match this one. So it wasn't just like, oh, let's put clothes on this puppet. It was like, we need this head with this body, with this dress, and now we need to change that to this. So it was even more complicated because of the nature of how the puppets were built and presented.
That's crazy.
But man, you'd never know. That's why I love it.
So Carol is asking, did Moschino provide all the fabric samples? And
yes.
Yeah, so you're saying they created in Italy all of the costumes or all of the outfits for the puppets.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yep.
How
all of those fabrics? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Do you know, like in the building process, and this maybe happened before you got on board, but did the puppet shop build the bodies and then send them to Italy to be dressed and then sent back to production, or was it like, we'll send you the measurements and then they get dressed on set?
That's a really good question that I didn't even think about. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. That's a really good, because all of these garments fit these like the puppets impeccably. Like that is a really good question.
Well, because I feel like if they're used to building garments for model, I guess they could build it to any size depending on whether it was a person size or
they must. I'm guessing that they did, because honestly, we did not have to do one tweak or nip or anything on any of these puppets.
Well, and I know that puppets are often sewn into their garments. Like the garments are like the costumes are attached most of the time.
That is a really good question. Now I want to know the answer.
All right, maybe we'll ask Tim when I think we're planning to have Tim on this show in a little bit.
He's the best on these. He's so funny. I love. I'll tune in and watch him anytime.
So how long did that whole shoot take? Was it a multiple day shoot?
So we prepped ahead of time what we could. Then we had a day where the Moschino team met with us, and we just, almost for timing purposes and just to make sure the dresses worked on the puppets, we had like a prep day with the Moschino team. And then when we came into the studio, we had a day that they called a rehearsal day. And then I think it was 3 days of shooting. To add to just the whole idea of the marionetted puppet show, but it was also, if you took notice of the audience and all of the audience members who were actual likenesses of Vogue editors from around the world and celebrity guests. And so that was just an added hilarity.
Yeah, it was great. It was really, really well done. And, you know, I thought, again, like, I just think I'm a big fan of seeing different kinds of puppetry styles on screen. I think a lot of times the prevalence of Muppet style is great. And I love the fact that we have so much of the hand and rod style or live hands or, you know, big body puppets. But there's so many more styles of puppetry that can be on screen that I'm really excited when other people outside of the puppetry community pick up on that.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, this is cool. What's going on in this? What's going on?
There's Tim and I. That's Tim Lagasse on the floor.
Nice.
And you can use this photo when you interview him as well.
Okay, great.
And that's me. And I think I was, I must have been fixing a string. I don't know what I was doing in that little bit.
Yeah, he's.
But yeah, that was
to get to there.
That was the board right before they enter the runway. Just to add to what you said about this other medium, and really wonderful that they kind of clued into the fact that puppets could be a good way to present their fashion. Jeremy Scott is the current artistic director at Moschino, and he does have a history with puppets. He designed 2 garments for Miss Piggy. And so I had worked with him before. I don't know that I actually was, I know they did the shoot in LA, and this was when I was still in New York, but yes, Miss Piggy appeared on the Regis and Kelly show in Puerto Rico wearing a Jeremy Scott. And then he also had built a really great trench coat for her. And this is when he was his own fashion house. So now he is the artistic director at Moschino, and I think he already had puppets on the brain.
That's so cool. I love that.
Yeah, he's great. He's great to work with.
Cool. What do you think, just kind of overall, do you feel like there are, do you think there are things that you study or practice or you're like interested in outside of your job that make you better at what you do?
I've been making a lot of masks these days.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What kind of masks? Oh, you mean like
COVID masks?
COVID masks.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that's helping, or I think that's just neutral.
I was like, is it perhaps an
not
Arlecchino mask?
No. Gosh, I don't know. I think Walking with Dinosaurs, I know that's still within the realm of what I do, but I think that taught me the most about I think that was a really good example of collaboration. And I think just working with teams of people that I'm unfamiliar with in the field that I'm in makes it easier to then proceed. You know, you work on Sesame Street, and it's a very, very close-knit family, and the team has been the same for years. And then all of a sudden you're thrown onto this tour with roadies and sound departments, and I mean, even more intense than a theater production. So yeah, I think that, you get a bigger picture. So maybe that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a question you want to throw in there, Katie? Oh, Mr. Greg Wright says, she may have addressed this. How and where did the idea of a puppet fashion show even arise? Yeah, you were talking a little bit about how the idea came about. What was that? The artistic director had experience with puppetry before.
Mm-hmm. And I also think that, because I know that there were a number of fashion shows that were just filmed or watched. It was very hard to do a fashion show in COVID right now. So I do think Jeremy Scott, since he had worked with the company before and had an interest in puppetry. And it's interesting, I can't recall what program this was on, but during the Second World War, a similar event occurred, and they were using puppets to show fashion as well. They did a doll-like show. And I wish I could find the resource for that, but yeah.
I feel like we may put a link to it too, but I think in doing some research, the Moschino company put out a little behind the scenes and sort of historical perspective on the fashion show that there had been a French puppet fashion show during the war.
Yes. Yes. So I think it was already bubbling, I'm so glad it happened, because I've never seen anything that I've worked on get so much press. Like, seriously, like, wow, this is everywhere.
I mean, it was pretty cool, and also I feel like it got a lot of attention because it was an innovative way to do fashion during this time. Like, if you can't have a lot of people, then you have a lot of puppets,
Yeah.
Which I think is a really cool idea.
I know there wasn't another puppet show that I knew of that happened in this particular season of fashion. Yeah. So there might be next season. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that this is a trend,
Yeah.
It'd be great. Yeah.
Really, I hope it's not, because that means COVID's still around. I would hope that we could get back to people showing off their clothing.
Well, sure. But I mean, just from a puppetry perspective, even when we can all get together, I mean, it would be great.
Yeah.
When, I have only sort of side experience with this in building designing a unicorn for a Tom Brown fashion show in Paris.
Oh, cool.
Like this big puppet that walked on the runway. It was like the final moment for this this actual fashion show. And it was a really great addition to the, really great way to sort of bring in this other fantastical element.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought that was really cool.
I did too. I like Tom Brown. He's very really creative. Cool on that.
Yeah. So do you feel like there's as a wrangler, do you feel like there's a like do you feel like a lot of the shows that you work on that have wranglers are sort of bigger productions? Do you feel like there's a place to put wranglers onto other sized productions, and do you feel like it's a useful job to have regardless of the size of the production?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you can consolidate that position if you have a puppeteer who can also wrangle. I think that's, if it's that small of a production. But I do think a wrangler definitely is an asset when no one else is familiar on the team with puppets and how puppets need to work. I think even on just this recent production that I just worked on, our prop department was like, wow, I have learned so much just by watching you do what you do.
That's right.
Because, when you never worked with puppets, it's a whole other learning curve. From, camera department has a lot to learn, the properties department, so yes, I do think, yes, it is a invaluable resource on set, but I think sometimes you can do without if the puppeteer or the properties person has a knowledge.
What do you feel like are some of the takeaways that other like those props departments that don't have experience working with puppets, what do you feel like are their first takeaways when they're just learning about or just working with puppets for the first time?
That puppets don't hold things.
And
they don't just hold things, and that there needs to be some way, and if that means the prop is gutted out of its insides to make it lighter, or if you use a toy instead of, because I think that's that I think gets lost in the shuffle most often is that I think somebody without a knowledge of puppetry that's in a properties position, and you say, oh yeah, they need to, bring this anvil up into the shot. Well, most properties department people just get a real anvil, and it's like,
right.
well, you can't have anyone hold an anvil over their head and puppeteer with it. So, and that's an extreme example, and I don't think anyone's ever asked for an anvil. But we have been asked about anchors, or we've been asked about, VCR old video cameras, or like, you just have to remember that there's a person or someone holding this up into the shot, whether it's on a rod or or they're having to hold it by hand, or how long is the shot. So I think that's the biggest thing that can be taken away from working with puppets that isn't the same as working with humans.
Yeah. That certainly rings true. It just is like,
you should know. You've been underneath.
Well, yes, definitely. I mean, I feel like the big surprise is that as a puppeteer, you're trying to make your work invisible, and that's only becomes a problem when the people on the production are also buying into that there's no person under there, or that puppet doesn't move its hand, or like it can't, eat something.
Yes. But that's what I love about my job. Like I love, even if a properties department hands you something that you think, oh, you figure it out. And, a lot of times you're working with a properties department that's just delightful and is excited to figure it out. And so that's what I love. I just love that.
Yeah.
Because then afterwards you watch it and you go, look what we did. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the get back to collaboration. That's look what we did. The puppeteers made it work. The Wranglers made it work. The properties department made it work. The camera department made it work. Like, it's such a huge involvement of so many elements to make it work. And that's what I love. Yeah.
Katie, you have another question you want to throw in there? Yeah. Oh, Carol, great. She says, how do you see the pandemic impacting your work as a puppeteer? That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
You've been doing work recently, though.
Since August, I started again, and it has been busy. Thankfully, it was non-existent for most of 2020 for me. I think I stopped Helpsters, came back to Phoenix, and then just picked up one or two things in Los Angeles, and then it was just like, so that was very difficult. And my husband, I know we're talking about puppets, but he works in live entertainment, so he's been out of work and probably won't go back for quite some time. Like, like the Broadway and live shows, and they're suffering a lot. So I was happy to be brought back, and it's been one project after another. So,
and do you feel like there are, I don't know, I feel like the fashion show is kind of emblematic of how puppetry can work its way into the limitations of the world, right? Like puppetry is always finding its way into the in-between spots, and like finding a way to get itself in there despite limitations. Do you feel like the shows that you're working on that have puppetry in them are better suited to any kind of adaptations that there might be for COVID productions, or are there special things that people are doing that puppetry is good at adapting?
Well, definitely the Moschino shoot, because there was no one speaking, no one, outside of the one opening bit, it was really, it felt safe to work on a production where no one had to remove a mask, no one had to, and even on the last production I worked on, there was lines and speaking. They still were very strict about the Hollywood COVID rules. So, so yeah, but it's a you just don't know. So you just you practice the safest way to do your job, and I do see puppetry continuing to have work, though. I do see that there's not a slowdown right now. And to go back to Carol's question, yeah, it in some ways it seems busier than I would have expected in this pandemic. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I am super glad to have you on the show. Thank you so much for talking with me. This has been delightful.
It's so easy to talk to you, Eric. It's great.
Well, likewise. I have always really enjoyed the projects that we've got to work on together. I can't wait for the next time we get to work together.
We worked on your H&M project together too. I came in.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You came in and did some stitching for us and stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
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 That was really cool. Well,
that was
I'm
really
really
cool.
looking forward to getting to collaborate with you again. It's always
Me
a joy.
too.
I feel like when it comes to Wranglers, like you're really at the top of the list. You really know what you're doing.
Thanks. I learned a lot from many Wranglers before me. I mean, and it's true. Like the skill set you learn from watching really makes you a better Wrangler. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much again, and I hope to see you soon.
Me too. Bye.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. This has been another great episode of Puppet Time Online. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for your great questions. Thanks for watching. Be sure to join us again next week, next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And we got a couple of quick shout outs. Just, Andrea has worked on a bunch of stuff with Sesame Workshop, including Helpsters and Sesame Street. Check out the work that they do. Obviously, Sesame Street has made a huge impact on so many lives. Helpsters is incredible. If you haven't seen that show on Apple TV+, it's great. And my other shout out is just to the Jim Henson Creature Shop, which you can check out what they're doing at creatureshop.com. They do amazing stuff, and it's just everything they produce looks incredible. Everything from the Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance, to the Moschino marionettes that you saw. We're on YouTube Live. We're on Facebook Live. Make sure to like and subscribe. Just make sure you catch when we're on again. You can follow us on Instagram at The Puppet Kitchen. And thanks, Katie, also for keeping a smooth running show, I gotta say.
You're welcome.
Speaking of collaboration, I couldn't do it without you.
Definitely not checking the returns every 5 seconds. Totally focused on this show.
Yeah, I mean, it's all right. It's all right. It's also okay to watch a show about puppets for an hour.
Yes.
And then go back to thinking about the bigger things. But with that, I will say thanks again for joining me. And just remember, you don't have to do everything to do something. We'll see you next time.